Welcome back to Small Talks at Midnight. I'm your host, Flavia Marfella. You will hear the voice of Dr. Richard Munang, climate action expert, UN Environment and Innovation Award winner, is the author of Making Africa Work Through the Power of Innovative Voluntarism. Okay, welcome Richard to Small Talks at Midnight. Would you like to introduce yourself and then let's see where this conversation will bring us?
I'm Richard Munang. I'm 41 years old, and my journey started far back. I'm Cameroonian. I was born in the northwestern part of Cameroon in 26th of October 1978, and into a family of peasant farmers. My mom and dad were peasant farmers, and we are 5 siblings, and I'm second to the last in the family. So growing up in the village was actually a village that typified the traditional African setting where you have a chief, you have an entire community, and every child was everyone's child. And there is this African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And we were brought up in that communal way of interacting with each and everyone and doing things to support the community. So I went to school, and after school to the university, I did education and physics. So I was actually trained to be a teacher. And after that, I volunteered for 1 year in an NGO. And as a result of the experience that I got for 1 year volunteering, I got a scholarship to study in England, actually University of Nottingham, where I did my master's and later on my doctorate degree in environmental science. So what I am today is I'm a climate change expert, and focusing on environmental change. But more importantly, my passion is actually to inspire young people so that they can be able to find purpose and use their skills and talents to do something that not only benefits them, but that benefits society and help them see themselves as solution providers and not always complainers in chief.
I think you have a fantastic mission. It's so nice to see. I actually, as I said to you in the mail, I interviewed some young people more than just on climate activism, because I believe young generation has a lot to say nowadays. Probably
True.
more than when we were a child. I don't know, but I think we have to empower them. So I'm totally with you in that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will start off by just complimenting what you said. When we were growing up, we were not as vocal as the young people today. And I think one of the reasons is also the different platforms they have. They have Twitter, they have LinkedIn, they have WhatsApp, they have Facebook. So they can say anything they want to say. And so they have those opportunities, which we never had 40 years or 30 years ago.
My reflection was kids are inspired by each other nowadays, by other kids. So what do you think about this that I'm saying? Do you see that nowadays they can inspire each other more?
Yes, that's a very important aspect. And I think just building on what I've said, the reality is, what I've noticed is that young people, especially kids, seems not to have role models that can inspire them to focus their energies, their talent and skills to solve problems. But they instead they will have so many people that are role models based on on popularity rather than on actions. And as a result of that, most of the young people tend to look up to them, or they want to be like them because they're rich, because they have helicopters that they fly in, because they live in mansions, which I think is a misnomer. It's not the right approach. What I think also is that because of that, the young people tend not to necessarily aspire to focus on solving problems because they have not seen a lot of people who focus on solving society problems, whether it's problems of poverty, problems, even environmental degradation. But what I've also learned from dealing with youth is that when you guide them well, they will follow instructions and guidance if you make them see that it is valuable to them and that as a result of doing what is right, they can build themselves not only to gain material, but to leave a legacy. And therefore, inspiring them, especially to make them self-believe that they have what it takes, one of the most important aspects. And therefore, showing examples of how your life experiences have helped shape you from nothing to something is a very powerful message that I've seen young people trying to connect with one another from that perspective. And therefore, it's very, very important that people showcase the good of others, starting from themselves, to inspire others so that at least they can also know that if they are good and they do something nice, they'll become role models for others. Because the beauty is being a role model, sometimes you might not know, but there are some quiet people who are quietly looking up to you and emulating you. So sometimes when you do good, you might not have an applause at the moment, but one day someone will tell you, I emulated how you were behaving, the actions you were taking. And as a result of that, my life has changed and that of my community has changed because of that. And that is a legacy. So if you think actions and behavior that is emulatable, then do what is right and associate yourself with those who are doing what is right. And I think that kind of value system approach to engage people, to build on values of respect, of humility, of ensuring that we can be able to also listen to guidance, to instruction, and to do something great is what I see missing in young people. But when you make them to understand it, they become really passionate about it.
That's so inspiring. Being a good example and showing that actually things can happen and can change. That is something made me reflect a lot. But I noticed it also that these young people that are having the climate activism as a one topic, actually they're caring about many other topics, and which I love to see. So it's what I learned from interviewing some of them. It's all about injustice, and it's not necessarily only climate. Have you observed that as well in your community?
Yes, the reality is that if you look at community, there are so many challenges. I call it multifaceted challenges. I mean, you have challenges of poverty. People literally live in poverty. They cannot afford a home. They cannot afford food. They cannot even afford to send their kids to school. These are realities that are dotted across the world. But at the same time, if you look at one challenge that wires through all these challenges is actually climate change, because when there is a drought, there is no food. Those who depend on livestock, the livestock dies. And then when there is no food, then those who are depending on food to feed their family, in their small farms to feed their family, they will not be able to feed their families. Those who are depending to get their food and sell and pay school fees will not. So then it only helps to make a problem that is already a big problem bigger. So the justice aspect is, if you are not addressing climate change, you are indirectly condemning people to poverty, and those who are already in poverty to deeper poverty. And if you are not addressing climate change, the injustice aspect becomes even bigger, because in a world that is so rich, no single citizen should be poor. That is a fact. And so, but if there is an issue, an environmental issue like climate change that can be addressed by the entire world coming together and ensuring that we're not polluting the atmosphere by burning fossil fuel, by burning coal, by traveling in the aeroplanes all the time, reducing our carbon footprint is important. then it means that we are further condemning people who are not supposed to be condemned into poverty, into more food insecurity, into not having the opportunities. So the young people taking up climate activism are doing the right thing. But what I like to add to that is that activism alone is important, but not enough. Activism is a means, not an end. And therefore, in as much as there is activism about a very real challenging issue like climate change, there needs also to be certain actions that young people can take practically to start showing that in as much as we are in this problem, there are also things we can do in our own way to turn the challenge into an opportunity. And this is quite very simple. Young people can be able to develop skills that they can develop briquettes where they're turning waste into briquettes that can light cook stoves, where they're using their skills to develop solar systems that can provide light, or develop solar dryers that can dry food to ensure that food is not being wasted as a result of lack of preservation. When they develop their skills, one must not study these things in school. But when you have a passion that you don't want to see a mother lose her vegetables or lose her maize or tomatoes, then you think of a solution that is environmentally friendly and doesn't add to the carbon emissions, then you are providing a solution, and then you are becoming a solution provider. But at the same time, you can use that to make the case that if every village can be able to have a solar system, that can be able to have solar lighting, that can be able to have solar street lights, and this is how we can do it, and this is how we are doing it, not even having an institution, but the only institution is me as an individual and my friends and colleagues. It means systems can do it better, and that way we'll be talking action and linking it to what needs to be done, and that moves from just activism to action that helps also inform activism on what needs to be done. Of course, climate change needs to be addressed. It needs money but there are certain actions that we can take without necessarily having to require huge sums of money. When you turn a tap of water not flowing, you stop it from flowing and wasting it. You are indirectly saving a forest somewhere. When we use less paper and do less printing and do less flying, we are indirectly contributing to the good of the environment and lowering our carbon footprint, which is actually a very important aspect to addressing climate change. When we think of how we can reduce our waste into the environment, whether it is plastic waste, and start thinking of alternatives that we can actually go shopping without using plastic bags, but use other alternatives. We are contributing our own quota, and these are simple things that citizens across the world can be able to do. So the young people have a very legitimate right for climate justice activism, but they need to move from just activism to also bring in other solutions that they themselves can do. And that way, the validity and the weight of what they're doing, which is already valid, will be taken to another level that will change more minds and souls.
How this can happen? How can a parent or a teacher fight for having more information about this or promoting this?
Yes, that's a very good question. The key is that we are already living with climate change. Whether we act or we don't act, we will live with it. The only difference will be that the consequences will become worse. and therefore, what we need to start thinking at the moment, whether it is in school or in religious institutions or in party, it doesn't really matter. What we need to start doing is that we are with climate change, and that is the new normal. What we need to do is that everybody needs to become a climate change actor. And if everybody is to become a climate change actor, regardless of domain or profession or specialty, we need to then start developing passion around aspects that we can individually build our enterprises around there. For example, if you are a cook and you are cooking in a restaurant, or you have your own cooking even at home, the kind of instruments that you use will be different because you're already conscious. Is it biogas that is produced in turning waste to energy, or is it gas that is produced by emitting into the atmosphere? Is it depending on aspects that can, is it instead of using charcoal, can you start using briquettes that are made from agricultural waste, which means that you are actually promoting climate action, but at the same time you are reducing social aspects like indoor pollution that kills over 400,000 people, especially in the African continent today, and over millions across the world. So when each and everyone takes that personal responsibility, that I will do what is needed to lower emissions and turn them into opportunities, then that becomes important. But I think for young people, what is more important is that the way they can be engaged with climate change, we need to move from just talking about it as a subject to making climate change action become part and parcel of our lives. And if we do that way, then we can start saying, teaching in school how they can create job opportunities for themselves without necessarily having to wait for government to employ them. And those job opportunities through the lens of climate change solve a societal problem and at the same time benefit many people. But that kind of an approach has not actually been mainstreamed into the vision of national development and curricula of schools. So we need to move from a crisis mode to a proactive mode where we turn crises to opportunities. If you take Africa, 257 million citizens go to bed hungry every night. But this is a continent that actually every year loses food in the form of post-harvest losses worth $48 billion US. What does that tell you? To address that problem, you cannot address it in a way that destroys the environment further. It therefore means to look for preservation techniques that are climate friendly, but that can then inspire young people to get to develop those climate friendly solutions, not because they are climate friendly, but because they can create opportunities for them to build their enterprises and businesses. Sometimes people will only do something if they see immediate benefit for themselves. But if we start to nurture, and especially in schools, young people to see that when you help solve a problem of community, you are 5 times richer because you have saved a life and a soul. That is inspiration. But that is not actually inculcated into the systems, school education systems that we have today. And so this selfishness and sometimes discourages people not to think solutions for societal problems, but to think solutions for what will make them rich and rich faster. And that is a problem that is destroying society.
With the knowledge we have today applied to, let's say, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, where the community had a strong value, that would be a very interesting thing to think at this moment, because that, of course, after this outbreak that hit everybody, I think the people have told me they discovered what was very close to them, how strong the community value is. So if I sum up all these things, that would be fantastic to see some change, as you said. I like to talk about dreams, and if you would like to tell more about what was your dream and what is your dream for the future? And then the second question, what would be your message to the people that are dreaming?
Thank you very much. I mean, dreams are very, very important. And if someone doesn't dream about what he or she wants to become or wants to do, then definitely that person is not on this planet Earth. Everybody dreams. But the biggest distinction between dreaming and realizing the dream lies in one word: action. A clear plan of action. And then taking that plan to reality. And that takes different aspects. When I was growing up, as I told you, in the little village in the northwestern part of Cameroon, I went to school without shoes. I mean, that's very normal. That was our era. And I was herding goats. So I get up in the morning, I rush to go and herd goats, and then come back from school, rush to go do that. And we'll do that over holidays. And my mother was a peasant farmer. She still is today. And I used to see her crops failed when there were no rains. So I will question, and then that year we will have very little food in our home. So I used to always question, what can I do, or what can happen that even if it doesn't rain, we can still have bumper harvest? And that question continuously always was in my head until when I went to university. And then I always was thinking that I want to find a solution to address that challenge that I saw in my mother's farm, because then it became a problem of the village and the problem of the country. And even what I noticed was that it was a problem of most parts of the world. And that was when I found my purpose. So when you dream, you need to develop passion around something and then work with that passion towards something that can keep you awake. And that is your purpose, because purpose is what makes you useful, and purpose is also what wakes you up at night, in the morning, whether you have money or not, to focus on it and make sure that you achieve it. And it gives you that self-satisfaction, that self-fulfillment, that I'm doing what I actually was brought into this world to do. And a lot of people don't have that self-fulfillment. And if you do something that you don't have, there is a difference between being a teller in a bank or selling in a shop. No, that is to put food on the table. But what is your purpose? A lot of people have not understood what their purpose is. And the purpose of life is to be useful. So anything you have a purpose around is definitely to solve a problem. Inspiring somebody is part of solving a problem, because you are helping somebody to feel that, I am useful. You instilling self-belief, and that is important. So when it comes to dreams, one must then be able to follow up what his or her passion is around, and then develop it further. And before I actually come to finally answer that question, when I went to university, I did education and physics. But my passion was always to come out with a solution that can be able to help farmers in villages to solve the problems that I grew up seeing. When I went to do a master's in England, I did environmental science, but my passion was still to understand and do something that can actually help those mothers in the villages. And then I did my doctorate degree on understanding how can you be able, with the changing climate, help develop systems in place that can help that particular mother in the village. And then what I am doing today is still around that. How can you inspire young people to tap into the agro value chain so that solutions can be developed to prevent the mother in the village losing her harvest as a result of lack of preservation? And as a result of that, it wakes me up at night. I get excited in the morning. I get excited during the day. I keep thinking how to perfect more solutions towards that. And so I can say that that's how you drive dreams. So a dream is more a manifestation of what you would want, which is still imaginary. Then you must have the passion to keep you wanting it. So in my message, especially to young people, is to have a plan of action to do something that touches lives, benefits society and community, but also benefits you. But the most important aspect is that community problems are solved as a result of your actions, and that you focus on it not only because you are doing it to benefit yourself, but to benefit others. And you must develop passion, because passion is that flame inside that it gets ignited when it's ignited and can actually help somebody to move forward, but it can also be quenched if it is abandoned. Passion is the currency, is the new currency of now. And if you do not have that currency, then definitely you need to find a way to find that currency and develop passion around an issue. And with that passion, develop some consistency and build some authority around that issue. And the beauty of the world today is that there are so many issues. How I want to move forward, my dream is always to see, especially young people in the continent, who we have over 12 million of them who are getting into the labor market every year, graduating from universities and looking for jobs, but there are no jobs. 12 million competing with 3 million jobs. So you're still talking about over 9 million who are jobless, and the number keeps increasing every year. Government cannot be able to provide jobs to all these people. So what alternatives can we use to ensure that these young people self-believe that they are actually the ones that they need to devise solutions to the problems and create opportunities for themselves? Then you will end up having millions of young people who are fulfilling their purpose, solving problems, and at the same time, there will be less crime, there will be less complaints, there will be less poverty, and society will actually live in harmony, not only with nature, but with one another.
Wow, that's so inspiring. I hope this will happen now and not that I cannot see it, you know?
It will happen. The first thing is to have hope and belief, because one aspect that, depending on how I grew up, and I grew up in poverty, and I always tell people that growing up in poverty is not a crime. It only helps to mold you to be stronger and versatile, because the biggest poverty is poverty of the mind. But when you have passion and start to do something, other people will want to understand what is driving you. Exactly. And then that is what's your secret. And you become an inspirational factor or an inspirational person for them, to inspire them to do more. And always thinking that you have to be the model for others is a very good mindset, because then you will never let others down, and you will then have more followers to do what you are doing, and societal problems will be solved. But when you wait and look for others, others are also looking for you, and then nothing happens. So when I say that the passion is the currency, it is because without passion, there is no way that an individual can have self-fulfillment, and therefore so many things will be started and will not get finished. But with passion comes purpose, and with purpose, you know what you want to do and where you want to go. So passion, purpose, unborrowed vision are the key ingredients that we need. But this must be within selflessness, that we can do things to solve problems for others and not only for ourselves. Like what you are doing, which I really appreciate. You are engaging people, talking to them, they're sharing their story. There are millions of people sometimes that don't even have a space to share their story. But when you give them that platform, you inspire them, and they feel that they're important. Because the most important thing for a human being is to self-believe that they're important. You see, a lot of people don't believe in themselves. And that is actually a very biggest poverty to me. That when someone doesn't believe in his or herself and think that he or she is not useful, that's the biggest deprivation that needs to be addressed. And what they need is not money, just for people to listen to them. So giving platform for people to tell their story, to me, I think is a very empowering tool, because empowerment sometimes it's not only about people being lifted out of poverty. Poverty is in different forms. Of course, there is the physical poverty of not having money, of not having a place to stay, of not having food. That's realistic, we know it. But there is also the poverty of lack of self-belief, of not having a space to tell a story or to share an idea. And a lot of people are deprived of that. And that is the biggest deprivation that actually plunged a lot of people into poverty, internal, I call it emotional and internal poverty.
I'm so glad to hear. We take time to talk to each other, and there is nothing else around us, only now speaking and people listening in this very moment. And if people are listening to this episode, I'm convinced they are probably just walking or cleaning or doing something else, but let's say more automatic things, but they will profoundly listen to what we are saying. While in this world, many times we are so distracted from so many things, and then probably we will change small things, but yeah, let's see what's happening after that.
Yes, and you're doing a good job, and you do it so nicely. I like the way you take the questions very naturally, and I think that's quite very inspiring.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations.
Thank you. And for you, for what you do every day, and I'm so inspired.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great, excellent. Thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
Great pleasure. Have a nice evening. Okay, bye-bye.
This was Small Talks at Midnight. As I learned that a story that matters needs to come from a personal experience, I'm here to listen for anyone that wants to share a story. As always, you find all the details from the guest in the show notes. So stay tuned, stay safe, and take care.